So the M25 protests have been happening again today at massive inconvenience to people's businesses, to those wanting to attend weddings, funerals, those who want to catch flights. And of course, we've had one woman very badly injured by a car pile-up that happened behind one of these protests. Another terrible case of a woman having a stroke and not getting to hospital in time. But let's just think about how these things have been policed. Let's look at what happened on the M25 last week.
Each individual will come and speak to you. If you've got any questions at all, just ask. And if any of you are in any discomfort or need anything, just let me know. And we'll try and sort you out in a nice way. Can't phrase that any worse, could I? But no, if you need any assistance at all, just let me know.
Yeah, any assistance at all. You know, if you want a packet of fags or something, I mean, we'll obviously help you. It's completely marvellous what you're doing, and we really support you. I'm amazed you didn't take the knee at the same time. But today, a slightly different approach to policing on the M25. Well, that's more like it. I mean, that's more like it. That's what we want to see from our police. That's what I want to see from our police. Well, let's see what former policeman and founding member of Scotland Yard's Undercover unit and author and star in the past of Channel 4, Peter Bleksley, makes of it all. Welcome to Talking Pints, Peter.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for being on the show.
Cheers.
I've been somewhat mystified by people working in the old job you were in. They take the knee to protesters that want the police to be defunded. They want to sort out people sitting on the M25 causing chaos in a nice way. Today we did see a more robust approach. What's going on within the police force? Have they lost their way?
Well, modern policing today is a long way removed from the policing that I got introduced to when I joined in the late 70s and the 80s. And in many regards, that's a good thing, because there were some pretty abhorrent practices that went on back in the day.
And you saw that in Brixton and elsewhere, didn't you?
Oh, and I'm glad that so much of that has been consigned to the dustbin of history. It had no place in policing then, and certainly not now. Unfortunately, it's gone. The police have to be on red alert, of course, to racism and wrongdoing and the like, and fair play to them. Many people deserve an enormous amount of credit for modernising the police service. But modernising, I think, has meant that the pendulum has swung a bit too far for my liking. Because I firmly believe that the police should, in fact they are, should be there for everyone. Everybody. That should be the default position of the police as understood by the public. And I think because of the steps the police have made now, they can make that case and say, we are here for everyone.
OK.
Apart from, of course, those who choose to break the law. And then we're there for them, but to scoop them up and put them in front of a court.
Obstructing the Queen's highway is breaking the law, isn't it?
It most certainly is, and it's a very easy piece of legislation to enforce. It's very clear and very easy. And myself, like many other people, my heart sank when I saw that nonsense going on last week. The Met, fortunately, adopted a far more appropriate kind of firmer line with the protesters and other forces around the M25, because it's policed by a number of different police forces, appear to be grasping the nettle and dealing with it certainly more firmly, and so they should. Whilst there is a message about the environment, of course, and I get that and understand it, and I'm aware of it, and I recycle and I persuade all my friends to do the like and more, and my house is very well insulated.
If you could persuade China to do the same thing, that'd be marvellous. But
I'll check the diary for next week. But yeah, so back to my point about policing. So police to be there for everyone. But what has happened, there's been a mission creep in recent years that the police have decided that by wearing a particular badge or a symbol or displaying a particular flag of some kind of allegiance, they are showing that they are there for a minority group. The default position, and I make no apology for repeating it, is that the police should be saying we are there for everyone, except wrongdoers. And the only way to show that is by showing no particular overt allegiance to any group, minority, whatever. So we don't paint police cars in LGBTQ colours, right? That's, you know, I get it. You do not, and this would cause some controversy, I would not even allow police officers to wear a poppy on their uniform because it's a symbol of allegiance. Yes, remembrance, I know, but the police uniform...
I don't think the poppy is political, but...
Well, then you can go into the white poppy debate and whether you wear a poppy or not, and if you're not wearing a poppy. So I would say no. The uniform that you are issued with is the only uniform that you wear, and there is to be no overt displaying of any symbol perceiving any allegiance to anybody, because we're here for everyone, and the only way the police can prove and show that is by kind of being there for no one, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting, and said with great passion. Now, your policing career led you into a very modern kind of policing, an undercover kind of policing, and I guess a pretty dangerous kind of policing. Just sort of share a bit with the audience some of the things you got up to.
Well, yes, I spent over a decade pretending to be a gangster.
Yeah.
So ditching my warrant card and going out there and spending sometimes days, weeks, months and longer with some very serious criminals who believed, fortunately, that I was one of them. I was a professional liar. I was a convincing gangster. And as a consequence, I bought tens upon tens of millions of pounds worth of drugs, bought many guns, counterfeit currency, entered conspiracies to murder people, and bought lorry loads of stolen whiskey and trainers and the such like. Sadly, I ended up paying a very heavy price for that, because for one particular operation that I was involved in, the bad guys decided to take out a contract on my life, which was discovered by an FBI phone tap in a bar in Boston, Massachusetts. And as a result, I was hurriedly parachuted into the witness protection program with no great forethought about it all. And not surprisingly, perhaps, continually conspiracy theorising as to how I'd got there, having the continual threat of the assassin's bullet in the back of my head, drinking and smoking too much, I had a catastrophic mental health breakdown.
Yeah, that's a heavy price.
Yeah, and it kind of... It signified the end of my policing career, really. I got better, clung on for a couple of years, but essentially I was never going to work undercover again, which was my main sort of skill base and had been for over...
When you worked with these gangsters, when you were with these people, did you, despite what they were doing wrong, did you actually in some ways begin to form friendships with them?
Yeah, because I'm a firm believer that there's more about humanity that unites us and divides us.
Yeah.
And that was actually often borne out by the fact that I would sometimes be in a bar or a hotel or a restaurant with these criminals who were great fun.
I bet.
They had a sense of humour. They weren't constrained by the laws of the land because they trampled all over them.
Yeah.
And they certainly weren't constrained by the police discipline procedure.
No, it's fascinating. My maternal grandfather was a senior Scotland Yard policeman and was chief super of the fraud squad for many, many years. And I remember him telling me in late age that very often the people he was nicking and putting in prison, actually in many ways he quite liked them as people, but it's just that they were breaking the law. It's a strange one, isn't it? But you kind of... It was a terrible end to your policing career and a terrible end for you in that sense, but you recovered from it and you've gone on to find quite interesting fame, really. I mean, the Channel 4 series Hunted, and then it morphed into Celebrity Hunted, and big numbers of people watched that. I mean, huge numbers of people watched that programme, and there you were as the chief, and it was your job to hunt people down. I mean, how much fun was it doing that?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, I went from this very secretive undercover life in the police into a totally new land where I'm on the TV. And Hunted and Celebrity Hunted was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, and we, of course, as law enforcement or military professionals or whatever background my team came from, had a lot of professional pride at hand, and we wanted to capture those pesky fugitives. So we took it enormously seriously. We were very determined. We worked tirelessly. But we had a bit of fun along the way, because there always has to be moments of levity. And as the chief, I felt it was part of my job to make sure those happened.
Well, they did. So I was invited to go on Celebrity Hunted, and it was in 2019. And, of course, you know, the money was to go to cancer causes, and I've had cancer myself as a young man, so, you know, there was a lot of me wanted to do it, and the proposal was to team me up with Simon Weston. And Simon rang me, an amazing sense of humour that Simon has, despite all the terrible disfigurement, operations. He said, well, the trouble is, Nigel, actually, I don't think we get far. We got the two most famous faces in the country, but for different reasons, which was an amazing sense of humour for Simon. But I wanted to do it, but it was the wrong year. But I'd sussed it all out. You wouldn't have got me. I was going to... No, you wouldn't have got me. No way. There's no way. I'd sussed it out. I was going to hitchhike, right?
Yeah.
I was going to hitchhike with Simon.
Right.
And we get a car, pick us up. And no problem. And we do it during the night, so there weren't too many cars that would see who we were. We'd hitchhike down to the coast. We'd give the driver a couple £100 to say, look, thank you, don't tell anybody you've seen us. I was then going to organise with a friend a boat, and overnight we'd have gone across to one of the very small French ports, moored up there, and 8 o'clock the next morning, gone and seen my local customs, said, look, we're here on holiday for a couple of weeks, and filled in the paperwork, and you'd never have found us, would you?
There's a few fundamental flaws with your plan, let me tell you. Right? Most notably, that when I was chief, the rules of the competition were that you could not leave the mainland UK.
Yeah, but I was going to cheat.
And secondly, OK? Yeah, well, cheating, don't get me started on cheating. But we find out when people cheated, or we certainly did when I was in charge. Because, I didn't float up the Thames on a water biscuit, you know what I mean? I've been round the block a few times, and I could rumble a cheat fairly easily. Your profile, your persona, of course, often polarises debate. So as much as you'd bung someone £200 to not say anything, when I go online, as I used to, making rather humorous videos for either the main show or the celebrity version, and dangle the carrot of a rather large reward for somebody, I'm sure there would be somebody that would have picked up the phone and said, Chief, I know exactly where Mr Farage is right now.
I'd have had a 50-50 chance, wouldn't I? I mean, if I stopped a car, I'd have had a 50% chance of them liking me or not liking me. So
you might have had a 48%, 52% chance, right, of somebody bubbling you up or not. But I reckon one of the 48 would have rang me, that's pretty sure.
You must have had great fun doing it. It was a very successful programme. It raised a lot of money.
It did.
For very, very good causes. So what next, Peter? You've done some really exciting things in life. What's the next big thing you're going to do?
Well, it's the current thing, thank you for asking. For the last 2.5 years, I've been hunting a 6'6" Liverpudlian by the name of Kevin Parle, who is wanted in connection with 2 separate murders. The first murder was the shooting dead of a 16-year-old boy called Liam Kelly in 2004, and the second murder was the shooting dead of a 22-year-old mother of 3 young children, Lucy Hargreaves, who has been described to me by everybody that I've met who knew her as being as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside. Kevin Parle has not been convicted of either of these crimes, but he is very much wanted for them. He's on the National Crime Agency's most wanted list. I've dedicated the last 2.5 years of my life to trying to find him. I simply will not rest. We have a BBC podcast about it called Manhunt, Finding Kevin Parle, and my latest book is called Manhunt, and this essentially is the longest wanted poster in the history of mankind. It's the story of my journey, what I've gone through, the mistakes I've made, what I'm doing, and I implore people, if they want to buy it, it can be purchased very cheaply online. Read it, I hope you enjoy it, and then leave it on the bus, leave it on the tube, pass it on to someone, because this is not about profit, this is about Parle, and finding Kevin Parle, because I firmly believe that a sense of justice is important to us all in our lives. When things are not just, then we feel hurt by it, and it leaves a bitter taste. For the sakes of Liam and Lucy, I want to see Kevin Parle in handcuffs.
I feel with that story, that in your case, it's kind of once a cop, always a cop, really, isn't it?
To a certain degree, yeah, it is. And I've been very fortunate to scratch a living for the last 20 years in the media. Part of my reason for hunting Kevin Parle was because my profile grew courtesy of Hunted and Celebrity Hunted.
Of course.
When I decided to leave that show, what can I do for the greater good? And for Liam and Lucy, finding Kevin Parle is what I'm trying to do for them and their loved ones as well, so that you can stand in a court and perhaps there can be some kind of closure. I've spent many a time with many people who have lost a loved one to murder or manslaughter. They become friends of mine, and those people are the ones who serve a true life sentence, the people who are left behind.
No, that's true. No, that's absolutely true. Is he still alive?
Yes, he is. There are some senior police officers, sadly, that want to believe the convenient rumour that he's dead. And there are many reasons, some of which I explain in the book, as to why they want to believe that. I have a body of information which would utterly contradict that and would indicate that he's very much alive. And until there is irrefutable proof of his death, I will not stop hunting him.
Peter Bleksley, I wish you luck in hunting down Kevin Parr and bringing justice. And I thank you for coming on Talking Pints. Peter Bleksley.
Cheers.
Thank you.